Been blessed this Sabbath already? Opportunity to praise God. And for the first song, we'd like to stand together. How great is our God? The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and time is in his hands. The beginning and the end, the beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, and Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. 'Cause you're the name above all names.
Sing with me, how
Worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will see how great is our God. Please be seated. We have a God who's ministered to us in lots of ways. And one of the things he does is pour his Spirit upon us and give us the chance to be renewed and changed. And to have that rain of his Spirit come and heal us and transform us and make us into something new. Healing rain. Healing rain is coming down. It's coming nearer to this soul. rich and poor, weak and strong. It's bringing mercy, it won't be long. Healing rain is coming down. It's coming closer to the lost and found. Tears of joy and tears of shame are washed forever in Jesus' name. Healing rain, it comes with fire, so let it fall and take us high. Healing rain, I'm not afraid to be washed in heaven's rain. Lift your heads, let us return to the mercy seat where time began. And in your eyes I see the pain. Come soak this dry heart with healing rain. And only you, the Son of Man, can take a leper and let him stand. So lift your hands, they can be held by someone greater, the great I am. Healing rain, it comes with fire, so let it fall and take us high. Healing rain, I'm not afraid to be washed in heaven's rain. Healing rain is falling down. Healing rain is falling down. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Healing rain is falling down. Healing rain is falling down. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Healing rain, it comes with fire, so let it fall and take us high. Healing rain, I'm not afraid to be washed in heaven's rain. To be washed in heaven's rain. Come unto me, all who are weary. Come unto me, all who are weak. Come unto me, all you rest. I'll give you rest for your soul. I'll give you peace through the storm. I'll give you joy and make you whole. Come unto me, I'll give you rest. Come unto me, all who are thirsty. Come unto me, all who are faint. Come unto me, all who are sorrowed, and I will give you rest. I'll give you rest for your soul. I'll give you peace through the storm. I'll give you joy and make you whole. Come unto me, I'll give you rest. There is a hope for the broken. There is a peace for your soul. There is a joy that comes from heaven. It never lets you go. I'll give you rest for your soul. I'll give you peace through the storm. I'll give you joy and make you whole. Come unto me, I'll give you rest. Come unto me, I'll give you rest. He was late. Now, I don't mean fashionably late. I don't mean acceptably late. He was too late. It had all taken place. They had planned on him being there. They had counted on it happening, but he didn't show up. They'd sent ahead of time a servant to say, "Come quickly." But he ignored him. Just carried on life as if everything was normal. As if he hadn't even come. He dallied, if you would. And then, when he did come, it was too late. Too late to give last rites. Too late to make funeral arrangements. Too late for an opening prayer or the hymns. Too late for the eulogy. Too late even for words of comfort. It's too late even for the entombment. Too late for a dinner with the grieving afterwards. He was too late. And Jesus had always seemed to be the one who would arrive at the right time. He seemed to be the man who was at the right place at the right time for somebody who was sick and needed healing, for somebody who needed encouragement, for somebody who just needed a word of hope. He always seemed to be there. And now he was too late. And they weren't sure how to deal with a God who was too late. You have to say, when somebody shows up, they ask, so tell me, why were you late? We had a family reunion and had a relative show up a day and a half after the family reunion had started. And our first question was, are you safe? And the second was, why are you here so late? What detained you? We want to hear the story. We want to figure it out. I could tell you that story, but it'd only make you laugh. What detained him? Why was he late? What was the excuse? Now, you can find lots of people make excuses for being late, right? The alarm clock didn't go off at the right time. I hit it with snooze and then it didn't go off, or I went off multiple times and I kept hitting it, but that's why I was late. Some people say they were late because they were up the night before and partying and just couldn't quite get up that time. But Jesus wouldn't have used either of those excuses, or said it was a bad hair day, had trouble getting ready, couldn't match together my shoes and figure out what outfit to put on, so I just didn't make it on time. Jesus couldn't use any of those excuses. Or traffic, right? Traffic was just hard in getting here. When people look, you would have asked his disciples, why was Jesus late? And I imagine they would have sat and thought, I really can't put my finger on any one thing, because Jesus just did everything like a normal day and just didn't seem to have any sense of urgency. Like he wasn't concerned. Finally, he arrives. Too late. You can hear it in her voice, in the words, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Right? Underneath that, you could see it. Why weren't you here? Don't you care? How could you let this happen to someone you love? What's the matter, Lord? In my need, I counted on you, and you weren't there. Why weren't you here? Has God arrived too late in your life? You find the brokenness of your life, and you had prayed about it, and you had asked God to be there, and you were hoping that it was being, and you knew he would show up at the 11th hour, but he didn't. Have you made a tally to say God is too late? He's not arrived in time, and suddenly your anger has turned to resentment and gotten deeper and deeper, and now it's affected your whole being. Too late, because when you prayed for God to do healings, and now they came to the surgery and they opened you up and they said they can't do anything. They just sewed you up and said, now it's time for you to call hospice. That's too late. Wouldn't you say that's too late? I'd say that's too late, God. Listen, are you here? Can you hear me? Lord, are you there? How come, Lord? How come it's not time? Aren't you answering? I'm sorry. Nobody's on the other line. He's too late. I don't know what's going on with him. He just doesn't seem to be at the time that I need him. So, God, I'm just giving up on you. I don't know what to do because you're too late. Has God arrived too late in your life? You thought that this was going to be the one, and instead, how did it turn out? Somebody else got him. God, you're too late. Look it, they're gone. And this habit, Lord, as this habit works out in my life, you know what I find out? It's moved beyond the area of something I can take care of, and now it is so big, it has me. You're too late to take care of this. Has God arrived too late in your life? And you went from hurting to depression and went down and it's the count, and you're still on the mats, and God hasn't done anything? Delivered you from this urge? Prayed about God being there to help you with the hurt in your life, and you're still in pain? But I have to tell you, with God present, it is never too late. With God present, it's never too late. Because you see, we look at the whole thing, and listen to how God responded when it came to this. He said, I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there. Pause for a moment and take this in. They come and say, Lord, the one you love, he's been asking for you. Oh, okay, Lord, he's dead. And Jesus says, I'm glad that I wasn't there. For your sakes, I'm glad that I wasn't there. Because see, Jesus isn't worried. He's not caught off guard. He's not petrified that, oh, I missed my appointment. Have you ever done that? I missed my appointment. Oh, this was the time and the opportunity, and I missed it. God wasn't worried because he knew. Because he had it all together. You see, late relates to time, and God does not bind time. Time does not bind God and hold him in a place. God is not bound by the circumstances of the clock ticking away. Time does not bind God, so he's not ever late. He's not too late. Because what happens is, see, for us, we look at opportunities and time and see how things progress, and then we look at a place in which we think the circumstances are beyond us, and that's when we call too late. But God's not bound by time. He's not bound by circumstances. So with God present, it's never too late. Forget conventional wisdom. What did they say? Oh, it's impossible now. The body's decayed. It's 4 days in the grave. Never could happen. And how many times have you heard the same kind of thing pronounced against people who are struggling? You know, they can never be healed. This kind of disease, no one ever walks away from. You never hear of a molester changing. You never hear of somebody changing their lust inside for homosexuality. You never hear that change. It just doesn't happen. The truth is, that's conventional wisdom. That's not God's. God has a power that's beyond that. When I look at my problems, I have to say, what do I do to deal with the solutions for the issues in my life? And too often what I do is I turn to my own resources and my own understanding to deal with my problems. And what I try to do is hide my pain until I deal with it, right? Till I get myself in an acceptable place that I can come out to the world about what's going on in my life, about my struggle. And sometimes I try to isolate myself before anybody else can isolate me. Before they can reject me, I try to pull myself away, because I'm struggling too hard with my issues. So I just try to separate myself and hope that things are going to work out. And I keep praying and I keep asking God. But the truth is that it never works just exactly like you think. God deals with things in a different way. For some of you who came to the evangelistic series, I shared a part of this story there. It's an important aspect in my life, so forgive me if I share it in more detail today. When my daughters were looking at doing things for sports, I decided that I wanted to, with my older daughter, learn how to not just ski, but actually take and look at snowboarding as the activity. And in Ashland, their bunny hill is like most other places, triple diamond, because Ashland only has the giant mountain. So, they just kind of slope it to one side, hoping that people will fall off in a safe direction. That's the bunny hill. So you have to learn quickly there, and I was excited because I had learned it. I think it was the third season that I had been snowboarding when I was with a friend, and we were moving at a fast pace down one of those diamond kind of runs, and I came across the corner, and there was a little bump, and I took the bump, and I made an unscheduled jump. And I knew that when I landed on my shoulder instead of my feet, there was a problem. And immediately, I felt excruciating pain. I said, I'm going to go ahead. I'll ski down to the bottom. My friend said, you are not moving from this place. And just literally pushed me down. I said, you're not thinking straight. Finally, they got an ambulance up and took me down and all the things that happened with that and went in. But it was okay because you know what happens?
I looked at the thing, and he said, you have a 3rd-degree AC separation. But the deal is, now you know why I stand like this all the time, right? Said, the deal is that's okay because, we're in a technological age. We can fix anything. We can send people to the moon. We can create bionic hands and arms. That's like, that's not a big deal. They're going to be able to just fix me up. I might be even better than I may be able to take those jumps intentionally after they're done. So the doctor pulled me aside and said, here's what we can do. We can take and drill and put a bolt in it, and it will hold it down. But the problem with that is that most often the bolts work their way off, and we have to do them multiple times. And it will limit your movement. The other option is that we can take and wire it, literally wire it down. But the problem is most people have excruciating pain once it's been wired, and they have limited motion. So what's the third option, I said? He said, leave it like it is. I said, wait, you're telling me there are 2 failed options and leave it, broken. I thought you were supposed to be a doctor, right? I mean, no punch intended, but make it better. And he said, his words were, there are some things that are still just beyond us. This is a shoulder. This isn't a bionic arm. And you know what? I still have a separated AC. Because there are some things that are just beyond us that we can't take, that we don't know how to do yet. And in my mind, I thought, we're a generation that has everything together and all this scientific knowledge and all this technological ability. Surely we can take care of our problems, right? But there are some things that are beyond us. How do we deal with the problems that are beyond us? What do you do when it's beyond your ability? When things don't work like the soap operas. In the soap operas, they take those little ammonia capsules and they're through with their crying and mourning, and it's done in one episode. 30 minutes later, everything's okay. But that's not real life. And we get used to this being what we interpret as life. So we sort of think that everything's just going to work out just that way. But the truth is, not all heroes walk away from the crashes unscathed. It's not like that in the real world. So I step back and say, God, what are you going to do with the beyond us? They knew ahead of time that the baby was going to be born stillborn. And they decided to just go ahead and birth it like normal. And I was there with the family. And it was a traumatic thing to have a delivery with a baby that's stillborn. They still cleaned the baby up and gave the mother and father time to be with the baby. And they dressed the baby. And then there was a funeral service for the church to attend. It was just days after the actual delivery because they had planned it ahead of time. They had planned it, but they weren't ready for it. And I watched the mother come forward to that little casket, and she picked the baby up, and she rocked it back and forth and said, "Don't leave me, come back. Don't leave me, come back." And the husband came around and put his hand on the baby and started praying that God would give the baby life again. And the group came forward, and they were all praying, and she was rocking the baby. And I wish I could tell you that the baby came back to life, but it's not how it happened. For the next 2 years, mother was devastated that God was too late in her life, that God wasn't there. It was in the 3rd year that she stood up in church and testified to say, "I've worked it through in my heart. I still grieve for my baby. But I've come to the place that I know that God is going to put him back in my arms. How do we deal with problems that are beyond us? Well, sometimes we blame. We blame anybody and everybody. We blame God. We blame the person next to us. We blame our family. We blame everyone. But sometimes the circumstances need to point to the one who really deserves the blame. Who's the one who's the source behind pain and heartache and brokenness. And oftentimes we don't end up putting the blame there. And we think that if we could just muster up enough, we can take care of the problem ourselves. But look at Lazarus. What could he do? No amount of positive thinking or willpower could have moved him up from that place. He wasn't going to get a group together and have a positive encouragement session and cheer him up enough to get up off of the bed, because he was dead. No matter how much the church came together, he wasn't resurrecting by their power, by his power, by some knowledge. It wasn't possible. He was beyond himself. He was powerless. That's when we need Godfidence. I didn't say confidence. I said Godfidence. Confidence is in something. Godfidence is in someone. It's a recognition that we have faith in the one who can bring us through regardless of circumstances. It doesn't matter what the circumstances, doesn't matter the timing, that God is there for us. That we can hold on to God. Sometimes I see myself in a tomb. And I'm just there waiting to be released. And I'm wondering where God is. And I keep listening for his voice in very dark circumstances. And I wait to be set free. And I'm wondering when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. But I have to tell you, we don't have to wait for victory. God has already brought the victory. God has already conquered Satan. It's a done deal. It's just a matter of carrying out the paperwork. It's just a matter of executing the reality of what's taken place. We already have victory. We already have victory. That's 5 of you. Come on. We already have victory. That's good news. That's incredible news that the victory's already been accomplished for us. Not something we're waiting on. Jesus has already defeated Satan. Every sin that you commit, you don't have to commit. Satan has already been defeated in your life. There's no marriage that's so broken that God can't heal it. God has the power. It doesn't matter who you are. It's a matter of who he is and whether we're willing to rely on him, whether we're willing to connect with him. I'm not waiting for victory. God's already accomplished the victory. Christ already has given the power. He's already demonstrated that Satan can't hold him. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Do you get it? The resurrection isn't a time event. That's what Mary and Martha thought. They looked at their whole situation and said, yeah, I know, Lord, that my brother will be resurrected in the end. You know what they thought? It was a time event. That it depended on the time. And Jesus said, it's not a time event. It's a me event. I am the resurrection and the life. It doesn't depend on the running down of time. It's a matter of me being present and bringing life out of darkness. Bringing life out of death. And everyone who believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And so he says, come forth. And Lazarus comes out. Notice what it says. The man who had died, so nobody has any question, the man who had died 4 days in the tomb, the man who had died came forth, bound hand and foot. Now, I don't know if you've just read that before, but think about it. He comes forth, somebody doesn't go get him, he comes forth, bound hand and foot. He comes forth. How's he going to come forth? You know, it's not going to be pretty. In fact, how they did it is they would take and they would put first a layer of spices on the body, and then they would wind it all up. And then they would put another layer, pounds of ointments, and then they would wrap the body again. And a third time, pounds of ointment, and then wrap the body the last time, leaving one more wrapping around it with a face cloth on it, and they were all bound. And he comes forward, bound. Is he alive? Is he alive? He comes on his own power. That means life. He comes out alive, but bound. Now, Jesus could have blown off his grave clothes when he brought him out, couldn't he? Popped back that stone and had him come out, but he didn't. He used people, his church, to roll back the stone first and then to unbind the man that he had given life to. Turn up your spiritual hearing aids. You hear what we're talking about? Jesus said to them, unbind him. Not me unbind him, you unbind him. In my name, because I gave him life. You do it. He was still bound. The truth is that lots of times when people come to Jesus, they receive life, but they're still bound by the grave clothes of the hold that Satan has had in their life. They're still bound by their death sentence from where they came from. They're still bound with all those things, and they need us to be a part of releasing them in the name of the Lord to the life that he's promised them. We need to come and look at the grave clothes. And I look at this whole situation and look at how it must have taken place, and they came to him. And I have to tell you, I'm repulsed by bodily fluids. I could never be a nurse. At our house, when Shelley starts talking about the day, I say, honey, could you be less specific? Just kind of go over the general trends of how things happen today. Because I don't like to talk about those kind of things, right? So here is this man, and he's not in a pretty state. In fact, already been said, Lord, by this time there will be a stench, for he has been dead for 4 days. Don't you love that the Bible's just straightforward and practical and real? No glossed over. They're going to stink. You know what? Our churches need to stink a little more. Because what's happened is he's calling them to be involved with the messiness of life. With the bound up filth of yesteryear. Some of our churches stand as sanctuaries of isolation chambers for the saints instead of hands-on emergency field hospitals for the sinners. We need to look at what our goal is and say, this isn't just a place to keep all the clean. This is a place to minister to those who are messy. How would it be if I have a child and say, son, I love you and I want to take care of you. Once you can take care of your own dirty diapers, once you can keep from making a mess all over things and stinking, I'd love to have you be a part of this family. But we do it this way. When you really have mastered the 28 fundamentals, when you don't smoke or drink, when you come into this church and you're wearing the right kind of clothes, when you're not a mess that we have to clean up, but somebody that could be a reasonably accepted stature of this community, we'd be glad to have you be part of our family. Until then, we'll let somebody work on you out there, because we're kind of holy in here. That's what we're here about. We like to sing songs together and comfort each other and have little warm fuzzies that we're able to take home each week. We're not about that kind of stuff, because I don't like to deal with bodily fluids. I'm repulsed. And I have to say, God, someplace in my heart, I need to have you change that about me. I need to stop focusing in on me and making church about me and start making it about you and about them. That church is about us coming together to have a plan for how we're going to take your message to the world, that you do give life. Because Jeff down the street is still entombed. He's still having struggles and problems. And the fact that he started as a drug addict and moved from there to stealing and moved from there to having a part with the gang, that's part of his everyday life. For Jeffrey, there's some problems here, Lord, and we don't want to just leave him out there. Hank looks so respectable and is there every week doing just what he needs to do. He's a successful man, a businessman, and we're glad to have him part of the church. But the truth is that Hank is there just running like he's a machine, going through the motions, doing everything he's supposed to, but having no purpose in life. He's just bringing home the money, doing what he's done every week, but he has no reason to really live. He's bound in a tomb just as well. And she smiles when she's with us. But when Aquila is by herself, she's in a funk almost all the time. Down on herself, broken about her yesterdays. She can't find any way to lift herself up. The church should not just care for itself. We should be about the calling of Jesus to unbind. We need to do more than preach the message that you shouldn't have an abortion. We need to be there with the woman who has the abortion and comfort her in the midst of it and let her know that God still loves her. And we need to be with the single mother who didn't have the abortion and kept her child and now is waiting for the world to come and give her some support in the everyday life. We need to do more than tell them to quit smoking. We need to walk with them through that journey of not smoking. We need to call them and give them encouragement during the night to help them walk through those steps. We need to do more than just tell them what's right. We need to support them in living right. And we need to do more than just preach about the Sabbath. We need to bring them into our homes and celebrate the Sabbath with them so they could see what it means to live with Jesus. You know the people's response? My church. And I loved my church. But when I tore my muscles for the acromioclavicular, their response was, a group of older people said, now I bet you know, you're too old for this. I tried to tell you to begin with, you shouldn't be out there. We should get a task force worker who can do that with the kids. That's not your thing. You should be obvious to you. And a group of younger people were telling me, listen, Pastor, here's what happened. You caught the outer edge. You should never do that. It's like, I know that. Somebody else said, you know, Pastor, maybe we could get a group to get together and find you something else to do. Something that you could do okay at and not hurt yourself. But there were a few. There were a few who came and said, I've taken a few spills myself. One person said, and I'm just praising God because I could have been broken pretty good. Another one said, you know, 2 years ago, I blew out my knee doing the skiing thing. I was back on this year. One person actually came beside me and said, listen, we could build that shoulder back up. You could be back on the mountain. It's going to take a while and some time. But I'll meet with you every week, and we can do these exercises. Where do you think I actually felt loved? When the people were willing to say, we have some weaknesses, we have some brokennesses, we have some hurts, and we understand what it feels like to be in that. Sometimes as the church, we come across as those who are all fixed and don't need anybody, and we're up here and everybody else feels like we need to come out of the closet and admit we're sinners and share with people our brokenness. Because behind our smiling faces, we still have struggles, right? And people need to know that we're all struggling together. That's what the church should be, a support for each other in the areas in which we're struggling to move us toward Jesus. The second thing is we've been given a new life. Can you imagine Lazarus? A second chance to live. An opportunity to do it all new again with a new sense of the fact of how precious life is. I can't believe he'll ever be the same as he was before. Oh, not that I think that Lazarus was bad before, but I don't think he had the sense of how precious life is. I can see him as the triumphal entry will later happen in Jesus' experience. I bet he's in the front, proclaiming to all the joy that Jesus has given him life. I bet he takes on each day with new purpose. I cannot somehow picture him wasting his life away watching TV, playing video games, and eating chocolates. Not that we couldn't do some of those things, but sometimes that's what we do. We exist and not live. A man given a new liver by one of those who care about him enough to will to him their lives. How could he ever go on drinking after that? Or the youth who's been on his third strike, and the judge still decides to give him mercy and actually expunges his entire record and gives him a new start. Do you think he'd go on living the same life? The husband who's taken back after adultery, his wife forgives him. Would you imagine he'd keep on flirting? Not if he valued the life he was given. I believe Lazarus must have treasured his relationships and looked at life new. And haven't we been given new life? A brand new life in Jesus. I say we need to watch this dead man live. I don't know if you caught what we've been talking about and how it's been working, but we're talking about how to reach the world out there. 2 points. The first point being, God's called us to unbind them. How many of you believe that that's what we're called for? Say amen. Okay, I believe, and I'm just going to say it straight, I believe there are more than 8 voices there, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Do you know that for the last 3 weeks, I've been sharing with you that there is a group of 41 people who are begging to know about the Bible, who've sent in and asked for studies, and we can only get 8 people who would respond. Because we all have our own lives. We're all busy. We want to get messy. We don't want to go out of our comfort zone. Why are we here? We're here to be comfortable. We're here to do it. And my goal is not to shame you, but honestly, if that's what it takes, I'll do whatever we need to do. Because my concern is not right now about us. My concern is about them. And I can't stand that they're out there asking for Bible studies, and we have to say, listen, we don't have time. We talk about our goal as Christians. When are we going to put ourselves behind that? I know it's not your thing. Okay. What is? When was the last time you looked to set people free in Jesus' name? That you moved outside of your family and outside of your comfort zone. When I go home, my wife's going to tell me that you spanked them. And it's true. And she doesn't like that, in case you're wondering. But I can't just let them stay out there without calling us to some kind of accountability to say, why are we here? We say that it is to connect with people for Jesus. And then we say, but it's too hard. Nobody wants to do it. I tried talking about it. But now we have the chance. They're here. The people are asking for it. It's not like, I don't want to push it on them. They're asking. And it would take an hour a week to reach them. Some of you are uncomfortable. That's okay. I'm just saying, do we care? Because when we care, we put ourselves behind it. Pastor Bill's going to be out in the lobby as we leave with some of those 41 names. Your option of how to respond to that. 2, my life. What do I do about the fact that Jesus has set me free? I can't live the same. God has given me a brand new life, and I can't live the same. I can't go on living, taking life for granted and living it just focusing in on me. I've got to live my life so that it makes a difference in the world around me, in my family, in the people next door. I've got to live my life with the treasure that God's given me, life, a brand new life. So the call that we have is to make that difference.